Here's a list of 27 movies by Martin Scorsese, the American director known for harsh, often violent depictions of American culture. In order of release date, ranked along the way. Starting in 1967, Who's That Knocking at My Door? A man struggles to accept the past of a woman that he's fallen in love with, starring Harvey Keitel. Martin Scorsese's first feature film and Harvey Keitel's first credited movie role. Keitel appears in 6 Martin Scorsese movies. 1972, Boxcar Bertha. A young woman teams up with a union leader to fight the corrupt railroad establishment during the Great Depression, starring Barbara Hershey and David Carradine. This is Scorsese's second movie, but also his lowest ranked movie in every category. 1973, Mean Streets. A small-time criminal must choose between friendship and his career in the mob, starring Robert De Niro and Harvey Keitel. This was the first of 11 movies starring Robert De Niro. Top 3 rated by critics on Metascore and Rotten Tomatoes. 1974, Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. A recently widowed woman, determined to make a better life for herself, takes a waitress job in a small diner, starring Ellen Burstyn and Chris Christopherson. This movie is made into a television comedy series, Alice, that aired for 9 seasons from 76 to 85, about an aspiring singer-waitress working at Mel's Diner. 1976, Taxi Driver. An unstable war veteran works as a nighttime taxi driver where his perception of the world fuels his violence, starring Robert De Niro and Jodie Foster. Top 3 on IMDb, Metacritic, TMDb, and Just Watch. Taxi Driver is also ranked on American Film Institute's Top 100 Movies of All Time at number 47 and number 52. Scorsese has 3 movies on this list. 1977, New York, New York. A saxophone player and a lounge singer embark on a strained and rocky romance as their careers begin to climb, starring Liza Minnelli and Robert De Niro. The theme from New York, New York has been played at Yankee Stadium since 1980. It was tradition to play Frank Sinatra's 1979 remake after every win, and Liza Minnelli's 1977 original when the home team loses. But since 2001, the stadium only plays Sinatra's version. 1980, Raging Bull. The story of Jake LaMotta, whose violence and temper led him to the top of the boxing world, but destroyed his life outside of it. Starring Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci. Top 3 rated on Rotten Tomatoes, Letterboxd, and all published list rankings. Also ranked number 24 and 4 on American Film Institute's Top 100 of all time. 1982, The King of Comedy. An aspiring comic attempts to achieve success in show business by stalking a late-night talk show host, starring Robert De Niro and Jerry Lewis. A box office flop, earning $2.5 million compared to a $19 million budget. It played in theaters for less than 2 weeks. 1985, After Hours. An ordinary guy has the worst night of his life after he agrees to visit a girl he met that evening at a coffee shop, starring Griffin Dunne and Rosanna Arquette. After Hours served as an inspiration for an episode of Ted Lasso called Beard After Hours in Season 2, Episode 9. 1986, The Color of Money. A former pool hustler takes on a talented protege, which inspires him to make an unlikely return to the game, starring Paul Newman and Tom Cruise. This is a sequel that takes place 25 years after the original, The Hustler from 1961, also starring Paul Newman as Fast Eddie. 1988, The Last Temptation of Christ. The life of Jesus Christ, his journey as he faces the struggles as all humans do, and his final temptation on the cross, starring Willem Dafoe and Harvey Keitel. Controversial at the time of release, French fundamentalists even torched movie theaters that played it. A disclaimer at the beginning of the movie declares, "This is not based on the Gospels," and is a departure from the usual general depiction of the life of Jesus Christ from the Bible. 1989, New York Stories. 3 stories happening in New York. The first, directed by Martin Scorsese, is about a painter who creates his works helped by high-volume music and an attractive assistant, starring Nick Nolte, Rosanna Arquette, and Steve Buscemi. The 3 segments are Life Lessons by Martin Scorsese, Life Without Zoe by Francis Ford Coppola, and Oedipus Rex by Woody Allen. 1990, Goodfellas. A true story about a kid who was adopted by neighborhood gangsters at an early age and climbed the ranks of the mafia family, starring Ray Liotta, Robert De Niro, and Joe Pesci. Top 3 rated on most sites, highlighted in green. This is the 3rd Martin Scorsese movie on AFI's Top 100 of all time, at 94 and 92. At the time of the film's release, it had the most profanity of any movie in history. The F word was used 321 times, and Joe Pesci says about half of them. 1991, Cape Fear. A convicted violent rapist recently released from prison stalks the family of the lawyer who originally defended him, starring Robert De Niro and Nick Nolte. A remake of the 1962 film of the same title, starring Gregory Peck and Robert Mitchum. 1993, The Age of Innocence. A young lawyer falls in love with a woman separated from her husband while he's engaged to the woman's cousin. Starring Daniel Day-Lewis, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Winona Ryder. Based on the 1920 novel. A friend gave a copy of the book to Martin Scorsese in 1980. It took him 7 years to finally get around to reading it. 1995, Casino. A low-level mobster oversees a Las Vegas casino where he runs into problems with his enforcer, his wife, con artists, and corrupt politicians. Starring Robert De Niro, Sharon Stone, and Joe Pesci. The top 3 on IMDb and Rotten Tomato audiences. The F word is said 435 times, which was a new record at the time, even more than Goodfellas. 1997, Kundan. A biographical film based on the life and writings of the 14th Dalai Lama, the exiled political and spiritual leader of Tibet. This movie was released a few months after 7 Years in Tibet, starring Brad Pitt, another movie about the Dalai Lama at several stages of his youth. 1999, Bringing Out the Dead. Haunted by the patients he failed to save, a burned-out ambulance paramedic fights to maintain his sanity over 3 turbulent nights. Starring Nicolas Cage, Patricia Arquette, and John Goodman. This was the last movie ever released on Laserdisc, the home video format that was about the size of a vinyl record album. And it looks like someone is currently selling an unopened copy of it on eBay. 2002, Gangs of New York. A man fights to restore peace from street gangs and avenge the death of his father, who was murdered by a psychotic butcher. Starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Daniel Day-Lewis, and Cameron Diaz. Several gangs in the movie, including the Dead Rabbits, the Bowery Boys, and the 40 Thieves, were real-life New York gangs in the 1860s and 1870s. Their appearance, weapons of choice, and behavior are historically accurate. 2004, The Aviator. A biography of Howard Hughes, during the years when he became a successful filmmaker and aviation pioneer, while growing unstable due to severe obsessive-compulsive disorder. Starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Cate Blanchett. This was Scorsese's first movie to gross over $100 million at the box office. This is the second of 6 Martin Scorsese movies starring Leonardo DiCaprio. 2006, The Departed. An undercover cop infiltrates the criminal underworld, while at the same time a career criminal mulls into the police ranks. Starring Jack Nicholson, Leonardo DiCaprio, Matt Damon, and Mark Wahlberg. This is the 3rd highest grossing movie on the list at $292 million. Its top 3 in all the highlighted categories, including, was number 1 highest according to Rotten Tomato audiences. A remake of Internal Affairs from 2002, a movie from Hong Kong. 2010, Shutter Island. A U.S. Marshal investigates the disappearance of a patient from a hospital for the criminally insane, starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Mark Ruffalo. A Shutter Island computer game was also published in 2010 for PC as a hidden object adventure game with tie-ins to the movie and photographs of the cast. This is a top 3 box office, IMDb, TMDb, and Just Watch. 2011, Hugo. An orphan living in the walls of a Paris train station gets wrapped up in a mystery involving his late father and an automaton, starring Asa Butterfield, Ben Kingsley, and Chloe Grace Moretz. Hugo gave Scorsese the opportunity to reference his passion for film preservation, restoration, and the exhibition of classic cinema. 2013, The Wolf of Wall Street. A wealthy stockbroker refuses to cooperate with a large securities fraud case involving crime, corruption, and the federal government. Starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Jonah Hill, and Margot Robbie. This was Scorsese's highest-grossing film at $407 million. Top 3 on IMDb, Just Watch, and total ratings. And yet again, this movie breaks the record for F-words at 569 times. It was also banned in 4 or 5 countries due to high sexual content. 2016, Silence. 2 priests travel to Japan in an attempt to locate their mentor, who is rumored to have committed apostasy. Starring Andrew Garfield, Adam Driver, and Liam Neeson. This was Scorsese's 3rd religious film. The premiere was held at the Vatican, screened by 400 Jesuit priests. 2019, The Irishman. A war veteran becomes a hitman for an organized crime family, where he maintains a close relationship with Jimmy Hoffa. Starring Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and Joe Pesci. Netflix ultimately backed the production with an unlimited budget. The movie was viewed 64 million times in the first 4 weeks on Netflix. It's a top 3 on Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes. And his latest movie, 2023's Killers of the Flower Moon. When oil was discovered in 1920s Oklahoma under Osage Nation tribal land, the Osage people were murdered one by one until the FBI finally stepped in to unravel the mystery. Starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Lily Gladstone, and Robert De Niro. Based on a true story and the 2017 book Killers of the Flower Moon, Oil, Money, Murder, and the Birth of the FBI. The investigation into Osage County was the first investigation presented to the newly formed Federal Bureau of Investigation. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more videos like this, or leave a comment if I missed something important.